The 1960s, a decade that changed everything. Civil rights movements, space exploration, cultural revolution, and cars. This was the golden age of American muscle, the era when European sports cars became objects of desire. When design was bold, engines were massive, and speed limits were merely suggestions. This is the story of the cars that defined a generation, the machines that turned teenagers into street racers, businessmen into collectors, and Sunday drives into adventures. Buckle up. We're taking a ride through the most iconic decade in automotive history. Let's start with the cars that made the 1960s roar. American muscle. Before the 60s, American cars were big, comfortable cruisers. They got you from point A to point B in style, but they weren't exactly exciting. Then 1964 happened, and everything changed. The Pontiac GTO. In 1964, Pontiac engineers did something brilliant and slightly rebellious. They took a mid-size Tempest and stuffed a massive 389 cubic inch V8 engine under the hood. The result, the Pontiac GTO. The GTO wasn't just fast, it was affordable fast. For around $3,000, any kid could own a car with 325 horsepower. Sales projections? Pontiac thought they'd sell 5,000. They sold 32,000 in the first year alone. The formula was simple but revolutionary. Straight-line speed for the working man. No exotic materials. No complicated engineering. Just raw American V8 power wrapped in sheet metal and attitude. The Ford Mustang. If one car defines 1960s America, it's the Ford Mustang. Launched on April 17, 1964, at the New York World's Fair, the Mustang wasn't just a car. It was a cultural phenomenon. Ford sold 22,000 Mustangs on the first day. Within the first year, over 400,000 people drove one home. It was affordable, starting at just $2,368. It was stylish, with that long hood and short rear deck, and it was customizable. You could get a basic 6-cylinder commuter or a fire-breathing V8 GT. Lee Iacocca, the Ford executive who championed the Mustang, understood something fundamental. Cars weren't just about getting somewhere. They were about who you wanted to be. The Chevrolet Camaro. General Motors couldn't let Ford have all the fun. In 1967, they unleashed the Chevrolet Camaro as a direct competitor to the Mustang. The rivalry was instant and fierce. The Camaro came with options ranging from a modest inline-6 to the legendary 396 cubic inch big block V8. But the real magic? The Z28 package, designed for racing, with its 302 V8 that revved to the moon, and handling that could actually go around corners. This wasn't just business competition. This was war. Ford versus Chevy. The rivalry sold millions of cars and created a cultural divide that exists to this day. At high schools across America, you were either a Ford guy or a Chevy guy. There was no middle ground. The Dodge Charger and Plymouth Roadrunner. Not to be outdone, Chrysler entered the fight with some of the most aggressive designs of the decade. The 1968 Dodge Charger, with its hidden headlights and flying buttress rear window, looked like it was doing 100 miles per hour while standing still. And then there was the Plymouth Roadrunner, named after the Warner Brothers cartoon character, complete with a beep-beep horn. The Roadrunner was the budget muscle car done right. It stripped away luxury features and focused on one thing: going fast. Starting at just $2,896, it proved you didn't need leather seats and air conditioning to have fun. By 1969, the muscle car wars had reached their peak. Dodge released the Charger Daytona with its massive rear wing and pointed nose cone, specifically designed to win NASCAR races. It was the first car to break 200 miles per hour in NASCAR competition. That's the kind of crazy the 60s were all about. While Americans were obsessed with straight-line speed, Europeans had different priorities: handling, design, and engineering elegance. The Jaguar E-Type. In March 1961, Jaguar unveiled the E-Type at the Geneva Motor Show, and the automotive world gasped. Enzo Ferrari himself said it was the most beautiful car ever made. He wasn't wrong. The E-Type looked like a spaceship that had landed from the future. That impossibly long hood, the covered headlights, the curvaceous body that seemed to flow like liquid metal, and underneath that beauty, a 3.8-liter inline-six engine that could push the car to 150 miles per hour. But here's what made the E-Type truly special. It was attainable. While Italian exotics cost a fortune, you could buy an E-Type for around $5,600. It was a supercar for the price of a well-equipped American sedan. No wonder they sold over 70,000 units during its production run. The E-Type represented European automotive philosophy at its finest. Beauty and performance in harmony. Every curve served a purpose. Every line had meaning. It was automotive art that you could actually drive. The Porsche 911. In 1964, Porsche introduced a car that would become automotive royalty, the 911. With its distinctive silhouette, rear-mounted flat-six engine, and round headlights, the 911 was instantly recognizable. What made the 911 special wasn't just its performance. Though the 130 horsepower could push it past 130 miles per hour, it was the engineering obsession air-cooled engine, rear-engine layout, precision German engineering that made every component purposeful. The 911 wasn't trying to be beautiful, like the E-Type, or brutish, like American muscle. It was trying to be perfect. And while perfection is impossible, Porsche got pretty damn close. The basic design was so good that it's still in production today, over 60 years later. That's not just success, that's immortality. The Aston Martin DB5. Some cars become famous for their engineering, others for their performance. The Aston Martin DB5 became famous because of a secret agent named Bond James Bond. When the DB5 appeared in Goldfinger in 1964, complete with ejector seat, machine guns, and tire slashers, it became the ultimate fantasy car. Never mind that real DB5s didn't have those features. The damage was done. The DB5 was now the coolest car on planet Earth. But even without the spy gadgets, the DB5 was special. Hand-built in Newport Pagnell, England, each car took weeks to complete. The aluminum body was shaped by craftsmen. The interior was leather and wood. The 4.0-liter inline-six produced 282 horsepower and a sound that could make angels weep. Only 1,021 DB5s were built. Each one cost about $12,000 new, roughly the price of a house in many parts of America. Today, they sell for millions. The DB5 proved that exclusivity and craftsmanship would always have value, even in a world of mass production. The Ferrari 250 GTO. And then there's the car that sits at the peak of automotive Mount Olympus, the Ferrari 250 GTO. Only 36 were ever made between 1962 and 1964. Each one was hand-built in Maranello, Italy, specifically for racing. The 3.0-liter Veytert 12 produced around 300 horsepower, and the car could hit 174 miles per hour. But numbers don't capture what made the 250 GTO special. This was Ferrari at the height of its racing dominance. This was Enzo Ferrari personally approving each buyer. This was Italian passion translated into metal, rubber, and speed. The 250 GTO won the FIA World Championship 3 years in a row. It was beauty. It was speed. It was victory. Today, a 250 GTO is the most valuable car in the world. The last one to sell publicly went for $70 million. That's not a typo. $70 million. For a car from the 1960s, that's the ultimate testament to its legend. Not every car from the 1960s was a muscle car or European exotic. Some were innovators, some were practical, and some were just weird. The Mini Cooper. In 1959, British designer Alec Isagonis created the Mini in response to the Suez Crisis and fuel shortages. His brief was simple: create the smallest car possible that could still carry 4 adults. What he created was revolutionary. The Mini put the engine sideways, mounted the transmission underneath it, and pushed the wheels to the absolute corners of the car. The result? A tiny car with more interior space than vehicles twice its size. But the Mini wasn't just practical. It was fun. That go-kart handling. The ability to park anywhere. The way it could outcorner sports cars that cost 10 times as much. The Mini proved that small could be brilliant. When racing driver John Cooper got his hands on the Mini, he created the Mini Cooper S, which went on to win the Monte Carlo Rally 3 times. A car designed for fuel efficiency became a giant killer on the racetrack. That's proper British ingenuity. The Volkswagen Beetle. The Beetle was designed in the 1930s Germany, but it became an icon of the 1960s counterculture in America. How did a car created by Hitler's regime become the choice of hippies and free spirits? Simplicity, reliability, affordability, and a certain underdog charm. The Beetle wasn't trying to be cool. It was honest about what it was. Basic transportation that worked. In a decade of excess and chrome-laden behemoths, the Beetle was refreshingly unpretentious. By the end of the 1960s, Volkswagen was running ads that said things like, "Ugly is only skin deep," and "It makes your house look bigger." They leaned into what made the Beetle different, and it worked. The Beetle became the best-selling car of all time, with over 21 million sold. The Chevrolet Corvair. Ralph Nader called it unsafe at any speed. General Motors called it innovative. The Chevrolet Corvair was definitely different. With its rear-mounted air-cooled engine and independent suspension at all 4 corners, the Corvair was GM's answer to the Beetle. It was quirky, practical, and actually quite fun to drive, especially in turbocharged Corsa form. But handling quirks and a famous book destroyed its reputation. By the end of the decade, the Corvair was dead. Today, it's remembered as a cautionary tale. Sometimes being different isn't enough. The Amphicar. And then there was the Amphicar, because apparently someone looked at a car and thought, "You know what this needs? The ability to float." The Amphicar was exactly what it sounds like, a car that could drive on roads and in water. It had a propeller in the back for water propulsion. It was terrible at being a car and terrible at being a boat. But it existed, and that's somehow beautiful. Only about 3,800 were made, and today they're collectible curiosities. The Amphicar represents the optimism and why not attitude of the 1960s. Not every experiment succeeded, but at least someone tried. The 1960s gave us more than just cars. They gave us automotive legends, rolling sculptures, freedom machines, dream makers. From the affordable thrills of a Ford Mustang to the exotic beauty of a Jaguar E-Type. From the raw power of a Hemi Cuda to the elegant engineering of a Porsche 911. From the quirky charm of a Mini Cooper to the floating absurdity of an Amphicar. These cars weren't perfect. They rusted. They broke down. They guzzled gas and polluted the air. Many handled like boats and stopped about as well. But they had something that's harder to quantify: character. They were products of a unique moment in history. When the economy was booming, when regulations were minimal, when designers and engineers were given freedom to experiment, when companies competed not just on price, but on emotion. We'll never see another decade like it. Regulations, safety standards, and environmental concerns, all necessary and good, mean that the Wild West era of automotive development is over. And while that's progress, it's also loss. But these cars remain. In museums, in collections, in garages, on roads, still running, still beautiful, still capable of making hearts race and bringing smiles to faces. The cars of the 1960s weren't just transportation. They were dreams made of metal and gasoline. They were freedom. They were rebellion. They were hope. And that's why, more than 60 years later, we still remember them. We still love them. We still dream about them. Because some things are just timeless. The cars of the 1960s. They came. They conquered. They became legends. And legends never die.